So, Star Citizen Live, all about Alpha 315, or lack thereof, I guess. I mean, it's still in Wave 1 at this moment, and not many people get to play it, so...
Star Citizen Live, all about Alpha 315. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live, all about Alpha 315. I'm your host, without the toast. No, I didn't feel good the second I did it. Jared Huckabee.
Let me put in the chat box for you guys.
Is Squadron 42.
I don't know why it's still off.
Person, Rich Tyrer.
It was on yesterday.
Didn't we do a whole show where we were like, yeah, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back? And then we're like, no, but you still have Alpha 315 with your features. So we're getting you one last time. How you doing, Rich?
I find that to be really fucking interesting, by the way. Leaving and never coming back. Last time with you, even though he's absolutely director of the PU features, right? So all of the features that went to Squadron 42 and are supposed to come back, is this guy not going to talk about them? Like, instantly, like, what the hell are you talking about, Jared? And what don't we know? Was like... Ding ding, like that was like, interesting.
Oh, I think that's the first time I've been introduced as S42.
Hopefully it's what you don't you know, Jared.
But after the S42, FPS director, Squadron 42.
You smell a conspiracy
Squadron
for sure.
42
Yes.
FPS game director.
See, I'm not used to that.
But I still do the core gameplay pillar for the PU. Just the features are becoming lighter.
As anybody who's been following the show for at least the 7 years I've been here, the title here
Pointless.
is a very small part of what you actually do here. I myself have had 5 titles in 7 years, and my job hasn't really changed. So, all right. So
the whole point of that show that they did
is
before,
currently on the PTU.
the whole point of that show they did before was to say that we're putting features into Squadron 42 first, and then bringing them over to Star Citizen. And that he was going to be focusing on that on Squadron 42, but he still was ahead of that pillar team in Star Citizen. And when Jared says that, he obviously knows something, and maybe shouldn't have said it or did say it, I don't know. But that's like, yo, this guy on the right, as annoying as he's been at times, for me, not answering questions, going off on tangents, things like that, has been the biggest breath of fresh air as a backer, because his enthusiasm and, I don't know, his ability to actually deliver features has been, like, top-notch.
It's available for Wave 1 testers, concierge, and subscribers.
So to not have him anymore
so
would
we're
be
here to talk about that today.
a big loss to the Star Citizen community.
Folks might be wondering, Todd Pappy was originally scheduled to be here.
Squadron 42,
but
who knows
been
what's going
flying
on
around. He just had a big summit in Montreal, so we decided we could give him a little break. Plus, it's Rich's last time, so we're just going to throw Rich to the
this
fire
Rich's last time thing.
Last
What is that about?
As usual, you can submit your questions live in the chat. You can do so by prefacing your question with the word question in capital letters surrounded by brackets. And of course, we put up a thread earlier in the week and started collecting questions on Spectrum and let people vote up which ones they wanted to see added most. This happens every single all about. So I'm going to point it out. When you say, hey, now that this is in Alpha 315, how's this going to be in Alpha 316 and 317 and 318? Like, that's not a question about 315. That's a question about the future and stuff like that. So we are going to try to keep the questions to Alpha 315.
Hold on.
There will be a couple.
Don't talk about the future, but every question that gets asked, they immediately just talk about the future and not about the current future. So, yeah. But it's our fault.
We can't help it.
Question
But right off the bat, Rich, let's start with
Thank
the
you, Von Frondel.
big elephant in the room. This was the most voted up question on the entire thread. I can already look in the chat and I can already see this question coming in here. What solutions have you come up with to mitigate the roving overdose death squads? Why are you muted? You're not muted on my end. Did you forget to charge your thing?
Am I back now?
You're back now.
So, now I've got a cool wire there.
It wasn't
Got a cool
me.
wire.
It was him.
Did you forget to charge your thing?
So, if you've played the latest PTU patch, you will notice that we have disabled the use of the multi-tool tractor beam and the medical gun, and the dedicated medical gun, and the other med pens to be able to target other players. So that will mitigate or will remove the the scenario that has been described with the roving overdose squads. We sat down and discussed this, myself, Todd, Tony, Chris.
How did you not foresee
how
this?
We wanted to handle
is
it
the question.
for 315 and going forward. Obviously, the ultimate goal is to have green zones be, that you can get anything out. We're not arbitrarily stopping you from doing those things, and then there are mechanisms in place, whether that is AI guards, security, to be able to resolve that. Because of where we were at with 315 and the cycle, we felt that the most prudent solution right now was to kind of keep the status quo, which was as it is in 314, as it has been for a long time, which is to prevent essentially interaction in the green zones. The main reason behind this, because of the most prudent, is that if you do suffer an injury in a green zone and you do regenerate at a hospital, you don't lose your gear, you don't lose your equipment. Because essentially we simulate that the AI security saw you and then came out and rescued you and then took you back to hospital.
People couldn't
so even though
loot
you
you in green
regenerate
zones?
in a medical gown, when you go to your location inventory, all of your equipment that you were wearing is still there. So we felt that for 315, the safest option was to do that. We did discuss for 315 the potential ability to just go, hey, well, maybe you can get your weapons out and you can only fire them at criminals. But we thought that might be just throwing more petrol onto the bonfire. And we thought, I think if we were earlier in the cycle,
I never tried to loot players in green
because we had
zones.
to
I didn't
focus
know.
on quite a lot with inventory and healing. They're two huge intrusive features. Potentially we could have gone down that road. But for now, for 315 and the latest PTU patch, it has been disabled. But we will be looking into the future about how to more elegantly solve it and allowing interaction, because that's what we want. The tractor beam is supposed to be loading up cargo boxes. Although I did read one guy was like, I can't send hot dogs and ice creams to people in the landing zone with my tractor beam anymore. So I'm sorry for that person, but yeah, we do.
The ice cream man.
Okay, so
ice cream man.
To make sure that I understand, so the intention for right now, for 315, for the immediate future,
is the same as 314.
It's to disable the medi guns and all the medi pens inside green zones, but also to make it so that if you die,
just to be clear, that's to disable it on other people. You can still use it. Yeah, so you can still get the gun out, you can still get the med pens out and use them on yourself. We're just disabling it, being able to use it on other people.
Gotcha.
Nice.
And then if you die inside a green zone, you don't lose your material, just in case you. We got a question coming up later about the various falls and stuff like that can occur. So if you do die inside a green zone,
that mic he's using is the worst.
Technical. My microphone.
Redacted was sponsored by them for 6 months or something, 3 months,
Hold it like this,
and the same thing happened to me.
Now you look like Bob
It
Barker
falls
on The
off
Price
all
is
the
Right.
time.
Yeah, this is actually better, right?
It doesn't
Yeah,
sound
everybody's
that
paying you to the
good.
pets.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. All right.
No, next one.
I took a week off and we're doing great. So the next question was were we supposed to be preemptively administrating any overdose drugs to ourselves in green zones to combat the current assault we're experiencing? And I'm going to guess the answer to that was no.
No, although I did like that became the meta to kind of stave off. But no, that's not the intention.
Okay. Hey, there's some Price is Right fans in the chat. See, some people know what I'm doing. Let's switch over to inventory for a little bit.
That's the wireless. He's charging it.
Going to allow members in the same party to share items that are stored within a ship.
Yeah, it's
or will
mod
that come
night.
with a later updated party org system, stuff like that?
Well, essentially, going forward, we still have the placeholder solution of local inventory. So we didn't want to put loads of engineering time into a placeholder solution, which is the local inventory, which is the temporary bag of holding. So the answer is, going forward, absolutely yes. We want org members and other players to be able to access inventories and share things. With the current implementation of local inventory, the answer is no.
This is the most disappointing thing of 3.15. But
per person player inventory. So if I go onto a ship and you're on, and it's your ship, Jared, I can open up the ship inventory and it will only be my ship inventory. And if you open up the ship inventory, it will only be your ship inventory. But local inventory, as I've said, I think on multiple ISCs and SCL Live before, local inventory is a placeholder solution until we have true physical inventory, which will be lockers, compartments, weapon racks, cargo hold, so on and so forth. And that will,
like, it being placeholder, dude, I totally understand, but at the same time, is it not worth it to do the engineering time on the game understanding that this is my org mate, this is my party member, and this is not? I think it really comes down to something like, instead of it being we didn't want to invest the time on this placeholder thing, I think things like hacking and other things that were planned to come, I think, into 3.15, at the very least 3.16, that are part of this Squadron 42 priorities thing that are going to eventually come back. I feel like until you can lock doors and somebody who's not allowed in your ship like can hack into them or something like that, then you have this like fully featured I don't know, like permission system in some way. And I feel like if you don't have a permission system, it would kind of suck. And then, yeah, I don't know. I'm just more on the, like, I'm okay with it now, although it's really crappy. But at the same time, you can have, like, a logistics guy in your ship to give out weapons and meds and stuff like that, and he's the one maintaining that inventory only, but that would be the workaround for right now.
Will be accessible by any player.
It cannot be stated enough that when you're running a live game in the middle of development, sometimes these are the challenges that you
well, you always have new players, right?
Yeah.
So who don't know previous information.
We love to hear it, Jared. We love to hear it
and stuff, especially with the guide program that's out there now. Currently, we can't transport ship components via the new physical inventory system. So outfitting each ship with higher grade shields and quantum drives tends to be a very painful process.
This is going to be a 3.16 thing, right?
The short answer, and I'll give a long answer to give at least some expositions. The short answer is because inventory is larger than just one pillar or one team, and to have all of that aspect to the ship side, which is kind of all like physicalized cargo and things like that, we weren't able to deliver it all at once. So that's the short answer. The long answer is that there is going to be an intention that we move away, like we did with the PMA, to the inner
Bingo, that'd be nice.
Inventory system. That we'll be moving away from the VMA towards more like a hangar management app. And that hangar management app then allows you to manage all of your items and gear within the hangar, and including that's where you then go and go, I want to take my repeater or laser cannon or whatever out of storage and put it onto a ship, and then NPCs would come out essentially and do that. So
he doesn't answer the question.
Essentially, they're two kind of separate systems in terms of the vehicle management and the player management.
That's not answering the question.
And essentially, there is a gray area in between where this is the pitfalls of working on a live game, that not everything always aligns up due to just amount of work. And this is one of those cases where, okay, in the short term, it might be a more painful process, but it's moving us closer to the final goal of where we want to be.
He answered it. They didn't have time. Yes, in that sense he did, but he didn't answer what the future solution. Are we going? This happens all the time, dude. And this is the one knock I have on Jared, is if they don't answer the question, he doesn't follow up to try to get them to answer the question. Like, and I don't know if he does or doesn't, but he probably doesn't here because there's been a history of this. If I was Jared in this situation, I would have just been like, will players be able to put a ship weapon or a shield or a power plant in their cargo and move it from one place to another in 316? Is that the plan right now? But maybe that's just me being a backer and him being an employee.
Go, well,
and
why have they done X, Y, Z?
That's the difference here.
That's worse than what we had, and then they realize, oh, that's because that's the groundwork for this next piece of functionality that allows us to move forward.
Is the solution would be the Hangar management app for putting weapons on a ship, like
remove
attaching
global inventory, which is where everything was stored. So in global
but not
inventory,
transferring,
all of your items
not
stored,
not
all of
as
your
cargo.
Weapons, all of your ship weapons, and we had to move everything into local inventory. And because we had to do that step, that has created that friction. But the intention is, you know, you will be able to do that in the futurely, or eventually, or in the future. But for now, yes, you know, that's something we unfortunately have to accept.
We got some questions in the chat about the Hangar app, like whether it will let us stock ships before spawning it and stuff. We'll be covering the Hangar app as we get closer to its release. As with all things, there will be a list of things that we want it to do, and then there will be what it can actually do in the T0, stuff like that. So I don't want to put too many ideas in folks' heads.
Oh God,
but,
tier 0 still.
That will also be not on my pillar, so I will not.
It's a USP. It's USP, so we're going to let them cover it when it comes time. So also questions about like Polaris and stuff or ships and stuff like that. Want to direct people again to the public roadmap. The public roadmap is your best
read the roadmap,
source of information for when a ship is going to arrive. If you don't, look at the release view. And if you don't, the release view is usually about half a year to a year out. If you don't see the ship on the release view, there's not going to be much.
Or Jake's going to stare at you
to share about that just yet. That's ready to share just yet anyway. Switching from so the Hangar app is one of those new apps that we're going to get. In 3.15, we just got knickknacks. In regards to knickknacks, what happens to items that get stolen by another player? Does it still show up on the original player's app, or does it get moved to the new players list?
So it gets moved to the new players list. So
for the YouTube community, this little girl is Lola. You guys probably don't know her that well, but she's not doing so well, and we had to bring her to the ER yesterday, but eating and keeping her food down now, and I think she just needs a little daddy time. I just gave her medicine, and I'm glad she doesn't hate me.
Will be obviously probably edge cases, and there's a difference between
barely
in
have
terms
health
of
insurance.
ownership. But the premise is that, you know, if I drop a gun and you pick up that gun,
we don't know if she's fine
you know,
yet. She hasn't used the bathroom.
To your knickknacks app, and
only
then
peeing.
You can then track it. But there will be further rules around that probably in the future around the legality of whether you have stolen that or whether I can mark it as stolen and so on and so on. We've talked a lot about that in terms of moving that forward. But for now, it is the simple matter of you pick that gun up, that gun's yours.
That's a good time to transition over to a question that almost every subscriber has. As far as death and looting goes, we can now loot players. What happens with looting subscriber items or even just pledged gear? People have pledged for this trophy or the old Citizen Con duster or whatnot. What happens when those subscriber items are looted off you? Do the players lose those forever, and do the new players have them forever?
So specifically for 3.15, if you die or
if you've subscribed to Star Citizen and you don't know what happens, I'd be extremely surprised. Like, I feel like people don't subscribe to Star Citizen in the first 30, 60 days that they've played the game. I feel like that's very much an extra thing. So, like, you lose your subscriber item, and a patch happens, and you get it back. Like,
or if you go into a downstate and somebody loots those items, or your ship blows up and you can't get back to those items, you will not have access to those items anymore, whether the new player has stolen them or whether they've been vaporized. So you will lose them in 3.15. They are not removed from your account. So when 3.16 comes around and we re-entitle all the items, you will be re-entitled all those items. So that's the short term, what will happen in 3.15. The intention long term is that we have a mechanism in the game that allows you to kind of associate yourself as a player inside the game with those items. And if those items are then stolen or taken or whatever, we will have a mechanism for you to be able to get those back. Now, I don't think it will be a simple matter of just an insurance claim where you just put the insurance claim and then you get it back, because there's lots of
Nice JPL shirt. Thanks, man. A viewer who works there gave me
mirror something like that, and lots of people do insurance fraud. So it's like I die and then I claim my insurance back, and then I just go and loot my body and I'm duplicating items. So we might have a system where it's like that item is associated by me. I've registered that item if I've got a special weapon or whatever, and then if that person gets picked up by UE security or it comes into the hands of the law, then it's given back to you, similar to if my car got stolen and the police found my car and it was still
this solution people are
usable,
not going to be happy with.
So there will be mechanisms in the future inside the game that will allow you to potentially get these items back. There's still lots of questions that we need to resolve on our end, but just to be clear, for 3.15, somebody loots your subscriber items, that player will take them, but they were not removed from your account. So come 3.16, they will be re-entitled to you.
So essentially, they want to make it more like Tarkov insurance when it comes to these things. And I mean, I think it's the most realistic solution, but I don't think it's realistic to have the type of player who would buy subscriber items and be dumb enough to go out in the verse with them and get killed to understand the solution to that and be okay with it. Like, we're talking, it could be a year from now that your subscriber helmet comes back to you. I love it. I think that that's actually really cool, but I don't think that's going to be a solution people are very happy with.
I think it's important. I know you just reiterated, but I'm going to reiterate
it's
again
true.
because
Welcome
it's
to the immersive universe. This is what you back for.
Alpha.
Sometimes it works in your favor to say that, and sometimes
you're not
it
at risk
doesn't.
of losing your items. At Alpha, those things are still on your account. They're still on your pledge. You log into the website and you see the items attributed to your account. They're still yours. You still have them. It's a question of access to them. Currently in the 3.15 branch, if they're taken off, you will lose access to them for the 3.15 branch until we have this other system in place, or until we hit 3.16 and all of them are reattributed to the account. So the loss is temporary at the moment, but long-term, vision out for Star Citizen and whatnot, those things that you've pledged for are safe at the moment.
Yep.
So, let's see.
At the moment.
Another death and looting question while we're on the topic here. Currently in 3.15 PTU, finding your body after dying is nearly impossible. Will there be a marker to find your body or the cargo of your ship if you exploded?
We are trying to add it. So it's something that it's been on the list for us to add. Obviously, these systems are quite
This could be why we're still wave 1.
complex. So there's been lots of bugs that we've been going through, and the engineering teams have been, trying to get as many bugs as they can fixed. It is still on. I actually got an update today from one of the engineers, and it is something that we want to do to try and help. It's basically the gravestone in other games, right? That you can go back and find it. Obviously, your body is still there, so if you do remember where you did die, then you should
If it's
be able
not
to go back
invisible
and retrieve it. But we're trying to add a marker. Whether it makes it to 3.15 or not will be dependent on how many bugs we get.
I imagine we also, because everything is supposed to be diegetic in the verse or something, it's like some kind of black box or something to track. It'll more than likely be some kind of, in terms of the lore, like some kind of mission marker that is associated with you, and then it's your scanner kind of thing that are able to pick it up. But yes, it's something that we do want to add to the game. Cool.
Please do.
Why does falling downstairs or getting knocked over by the wind kill us so often instead of leading to a down state?
It's the same with trolleys. So, interestingly, the reason why you die is because you take massive amounts of physics damage. It's the same with ramps, it's the same with trolleys. And the way that the down state works, and I think I described this in one of the ICs, is that if you take more
I usually go into the down
entire
state.
health bar, essentially times 2, you go past downed and straight to dead. So essentially, if you get shot with an Idris railgun,
But when I get shot,
you're
always die.
dead. There's no like, oh, I managed to survive for a little bit and somebody can rescue me. It's like, no, you go straight to jail. You know, you die straight away. Whereas if you only take a certain amount of damage, you go to downed. So in the cases here where you're dying because you're falling down the stairs or a trolley's hit you or something to do with a tractor beam, it's generally because something's gone wrong and you've taken a significant amount of physics damage because you've intersected something. Do you remember you see old games like Hitman or whatever, where the ragdoll would get like stuck and then just explode into the air? It's because there's been, a physics collision.
Taking 1 point of damage 1,000 times in a second.
Exactly, and that's basically what's happened. So there's these collisions that happen, and that basically does. I think I saw one where it's like 80,000 damage or something. You basically just get insta-gibbed. So that's why.
So it's to the external viewer, it looks like the
Is there
wind just
solutions
knocked you
to
over
these
and you suddenly
problems?
died, and it's like, thanks, wind. But what's actually happening is the physics is causing you to impact the ground so many times,
Yes.
or whatever surface you've hit.
I mean, it's just it's whether the player gets desynchronized or something, or these are complex problems to solve.
Okay.
Generally it's lots of different ones, but we'll eventually get them all.
Yeah, and
Okay.
as far as solutions,
I'm
to
satisfied with that
like I said,
answer.
that's just the generic work that's ongoing with the physics system.
I don't want to just
Absolutely.
know why. I
Yes.
want to know
It's-
that, like,
it's not
you're-
one specific fix.
you're
It's just
at
as
least
the
trying
physics
to
system
fix it.
continues to evolve and continues to develop, those outliers will be, hopefully be addressed along the way. I remember a story right around the time when I started here. People were flying a Hornet around in free fly in Arena Commander. Nobody else there, nothing to collide with, and after some amount of time, the Hornet would explode. And they're like, why did I just explode? But it was never consistent. Sometimes you'd survive 9 minutes, sometimes it'd only be 4 minutes. And it's like, well, why are people exploding? And they found out that it was because there was the flashlight that was equipped to the player character at that time was colliding with the Hornet. And depending on your maneuvers, and it would keep hitting the Hornet and going 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage, 1 damage. So the flashlight that was attached to the player character was slowly destroying the Hornet from within.
In
Well,
316,
it's the same
flashlights
when
are going to be the
people
meta
walking into,
in
you'd lower the
PvP.
ramp down, and then you get into the ship and it blow up. It was the ramp colliding with the floor
Right.
that was causing loads of damage. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Lepico, because it probably
Let's see. We're
did
still
that.
on Death and Looting. Let's stay there. How are CIG planning on managing random deaths now that there are consequences? So this is right now, such as falling through the map randomly, getting stuck inside a chair, a lift, etc. All the times we have no choice but to reset or backspace out. Loss of items due to just randomly
It is what it
exploding
is.
mid-quantum, stuff like that. Like the list of random deaths was very long.
I suppose.
Okay to hear.
Yes,
is what it
I
is,
suppose
dude.
this comes back to, a live game in development. We've
it comes down to you need to put an unstuck feature in the game. Period. That is something that is I feel like necessary
Obviously-
at this point.
I'll touch on this later, but we've obviously put in the server reset crash recovery,
Yep.
or the server crash recovery to allow us to reset. Obviously, client crashes are more varied in their manner because lots of different things can happen. Or, for example, just the random deaths where you just walk up the stairs and you fall through the floor or whatever. Fundamentally, we need to track them down, and we need to, we need to fix them. But if we prevented releasing features to the live game because of existing bugs, we'd never be
We'd
able
have
to
no
release
features.
anything. No, exactly. So we need to kind of push them live to see how they all interact with each other. Trolleys is a good one, for example. We uncovered quite a few issues with trolleys. We ended up fixing a lot of the
Yeah,
times
Michael
where the
Silver,
ramp
it kind of is.
destroy the ship because of trolleys, because people were like squashing trolleys and opening ramps onto trolleys. So it's just one of those cases where we need to get feedback on them, we need to highlight them, and then we need to make time to fix them and go through. But there's just so many of them. So but we can't slow down the development and trying to get these integrated systems in there, because we need to get feedback on those systems as well. So it's if we don't release the features, we wouldn't be able to test them, but it is what it is.
Heavy Bob in the chat says, maybe not release it till you fix the bugs. This is a good chance to remind folks that every tier
Oh
of
my
Star
God.
Citizen Alpha is
Imagine
a testing
giving
environment.
Heavy Bob a fucking platform. That guy is literally the most cancerous human being in the Star Citizen community. Oh my God. I don't ban people often. He's banned on my Discord. He's banned on Twitch. Everywhere.
It's you've got the Evocati at the base, the testing environment. Then you've got the PTU testing environment. But even when we release it, it's still Star Citizen Alpha, which is still a testing environment. So it is all for testing. The whole pyramid there. Or the
10
whole ladder,
years
so
of testing.
The other thing to understand, I think, is that imagine I could click my fingers and we went to 0 bugs, right? So I just did that, right?
I'm not going to
0 bugs, that's it. With 3 months development of 500-man dev team adding new stuff, we would generate loads more bugs, because that's generally I remember hearing somebody game development is you're basically working on a broken game 95% of the development until the end, where you fix everything and then that's it. But then the game comes out, they stop adding more stuff, right? So for us, we've still got fundamental systems going in, like inventory and healing, and they touch a lot of systems. So even if we fixed all the current bugs, we'd still generate new bugs,
more bugs every single batch.
And that's why we're trying to get all the features in there until we can get to be like where we go, okay, we're content complete from a feature perspective. Now let's close that out, polish it 1.0, and then go from there, the full release. But until
This is the shit I can't deal with this game, though. When people complain about bugs, it's an alpha. But he called it a live game earlier, right? It is not an alpha, and it is not a live game. It is some amalgamation of both. So even Heavy Bob, is in a way, his point has some value in the sense that there are some bugs that are absolutely game breaking, and I don't care if you are going to deliver a feature and it's going to come back. There, for each quarter, for each patch that you deliver, there are some bugs that just they keep them there because they have a solution for them later or whatever. And I think the problem with 30Ks and things like that, and what the solution they did for the cargo is such a big deal, is because they said, screw it. We're going to resolve one of the major issues, even though this is an alpha environment, because it's a live service game and people are trying to play it. And we can't keep putting out a product that people can't play.
The nature of life.
I don't expect it to be perfect, but there's some just
and there are things you can discuss with this many testers, and there are things that you can discuss with this many testers, and there's things that you can only diagnose with all of the available testers that we have in the Star Citizen community. Again, that's why the live environment. It's very
now we're not
important.
backers. Now we're
Never
testers.
Forget it. The live environment is still Star Citizen Alpha. It's still a test environment. I
get Jared's point, but
the wonderful issue council. It's like that, so folks can still help us identify these things and repro these things and help us to determine the actual cause of these things. Because just like the wind knocking you over and you dying, you go, oh, the wind just killed me. But it's actually not the wind; it's the thing that it knocked you into.
And we get a lot of good feedback on the features that we can react to and make help the game better. So it's win-win.
You mentioned server crash recovery. So let's hit that.
Oh, here we go.
What is server crash recovery for those who don't know? I know this is a bit outside your wheelhouse, but you're the one who's here today. So what is server crash recovery, and why does it matter for 315?
So in a nutshell, if the server goes down previously, when you log back on, you would have to request your ship to come back. The ESOP terminals, and essentially you'd be given a brand new ship. It wouldn't be the ship that you were currently flying around with. So anything that you had on there, like cargo, would be gone. So with server crash recovery, what happens is essentially we run heartbeats to determine essentially the state of your ship, and essentially if the server then goes down, when you request your ship, when you log back on, it will actually be the ship that was recorded at the previous heartbeat. So you would actually get the ship back, and probably in 99% of the cases, it would be the ship that you were just flying. So it would have all your cargo in it, and fundamentally as well, it would also have all of your ship inventory. So if you've put all of armor,
I dealt with that
into the
yesterday.
ship inventory,
I just quit
will
and was like,
retain that.
until they put this in,
So, that's a really big
I'm
one.
not playing.
That if the server does go down and you log back on, you should be able to request your ship to come, and it will be the ship that you essentially were flying previously.
Yeah. And when we talk about heartbeat, just to be super clear for people, it's obviously we can't be continuously writing every single player every single millisecond of playing to the database. That would just destroy the performance.
Yeah.
So there will be an interval, and I'm not going to give you a number right now because it's a thing that's in flux and will be continuously changing. But there will be an interval where it goes right, and then you'll play for a little while, right, and then you'll play for a while and right, and play for a while and right.
It's like playing a single player game and keep going quick save, and you play a
exactly.
More, it's quick save. You go a bit more quick save.
Okay.
You're not going quick save.
Exactly.
I mean, some people do.
So there will be occasions where you die between the
F5,
heartbeats,
F5.
like if you just got 70k cargo between the heartbeats and then you die, that 70k is going to be gone. It's like that. So it'll be important when it comes online. It's already kind of working on PT right now as it goes forward to recognize whether it was broken, like, oh, I didn't get my stuff back. No, it could still be working. You just might have lost your thing between the heartbeats and stuff like that. So it'll be an interesting new reporting challenge.
To be clear, this is a placeholder solution until full persistence and server meshing comes online, which will remove this altogether. But at least this is a really good stopgap while we have personal inventory go live, so that you should really be able to play with confidence that you're not going to lose it based off a server crash. Right. Obviously, you might be unlucky, but at least that's, for the majority of people, it should
never
be
lucky, Pepe W.
Yeah, and check out the CitizenCon server meshing and persistence panel if you haven't, to see where it's going and why that heartbeat thing is only temporary, and that the solution that the team is actually working towards will be much better than what this temporary solution currently is. Let's do some more general questions before we jump back into healing stuff. What kind of changes happen to planets? There have been some notable changes to the weather and the surface of multiple planets and moons, and it would be rad to get more info, this person says.
So essentially, there's been some tech changes in the background, which caused some changes in the distribution in some of the biomes. So they've slightly changed. We are aware that some biomes are missing some of the elements, but the art team are working feverishly to try and get some of those back.
It's nice that someone in his pillar knows a bit about this.
Yeah,
I thought we weren't going to get an answer.
Some of the SCLs where we talk about the procedural application of biomes and stuff, it's just as the tech grows, some of the configurations change and stuff like that. And it's one of those things, like, you don't want to constantly go back while it's evolving and just keep changing the same number over and over again every time. So when the tech gets to another kind of threshold, okay, so there it goes, all right, now it's time to go back and make sure all those other things that kind of got lost along the way go back. So
yeah, I mean, essentially the way it technically works is obviously there's a height map, and that height map gives you a solid ground, and then it has a distribution of all the assets, so things like rocks, trees, and all of that kind of thing. And then obviously we have buildings that are placed, and they're placed to fit onto the height map that's been generated. So essentially, any time where there's been some slight changes in the technology, such as when we did, the different variants of the terrain, essentially it slightly changes that height map, and then that just creates that cascading effect for all the others. So it generally means the artists have to go back in and do a bit of jiggery pokery to get back to.
What if Star Citizen runs
the
great
status
because
quo.
New Babbage is bugged?
Let's
Tell you
jump
what, this is
back in.
brilliant. So far, I've had Mike run out of battery, then Mike falling off the headset, and somebody rang me. I'm expecting somebody to burst through the door and fire alarm go off.
At this point, I've assumed that since this is your last SEO for a while, that you're just trolling me the entire time.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's jump
Now
back
it's
into
last
healing
SEO
and
for a
injury.
while. So more confidence.
What are your current takeaways from the initial P2 testing of healing and injury so far? I mean, we talked a little bit about the things that you had to change for the green zone and whatnot, but overall, so far we've been on P2 for a week. What's been your takeaways so far?
I think my biggest takeaway is that I think people have been generally happy with the features that have gone live.
Absolutely.
I think going back all from Evocati to now, if I treat them individually, if I look at inventory, I think when inventory went live, it was fairly rough. We had some really big issues with the timings and the performance with that. I think I saw like 89 minutes to be able to change a helmet, and the scaling of the icons was not scaling correctly to the resolutions. So when we were making it of like 1080, it's fine, and then somebody was going to 4K and the icon was going like 5 times the size. You would get, no, it wasn't going small, it was going huge. So people were playing on high resolutions, which you'd expect people to have decent PCs who are playing Evocati. They would like, I can only see one icon, and then I'm scrolling for hours and hours because they've got lots of subscribe, and it's like, what is this? And so I think we had some significant bugs that really had a large detriment on the experience. We also had quite a lot of quality of life that was kind of missing that we were still adding, and based on the feedback from Evocati that we did add. I think the version that went in yesterday, I think since Evocati, we've added sorting, we added filter categories. We should be adding instant filters so you don't have to apply them. I saw that yesterday. We've added sorting. Did I say sorting? Yeah, but we've added interaction points for like consumables, so like
so much better, so much better.
Grenades, so that it moves the interaction points away from the character, and you also get tooltip comparisons that correspond to the numbers, so you can quickly see like, okay, is that coming? Is that full? Is that half capacity in terms of magazines? So we've added a lot of improvements in quality of life between now and then. We've also been fixing a lot of the bugs that we've had. So the biggest priority ones where we've had like items being eaten and so on and so forth. We want to, they're like super critical, right? We don't want anybody losing anything. So I think inventory, is starting to
the stacking
get to where we want it
and
to be,
the splitting
for our tier 0 at least.
I think are the major problems
that's
left.
Good to see. We still want to do lots of improvements, and we'll be rolling straight onto them. So I'm happy in terms of the progress there. And I think that I've seen some feedback threads now where people are still giving us feedback, and it's great. And we're reading it all and digesting that, and taking it down for improvements. I think for healing, as I think, other than some people don't like beams, and that's everybody's preference, or some people's preferences. I think that has gone down well. I think we've seen lots of people being really engaged with the healing and medical gameplay. In terms of the different drugs, in terms of the masking of those drugs and injuries. Obviously, medical beacons are going live as well, and we've seen quite a lot of usage.
My biggest issue with the masking is it's a complete perfect mask, as if your leg isn't shattered. So I think Tarkov does it well, where you can mask the injury, but you still can't run full stop. You gotta be careful still, but it gives you a little bit more mobility so you can get out. Whereas this is, you take the drug and you're like as good as new for 15 minutes. I don't know. I don't like that as much.
And that, so that's good to see. I think I'm really looking forward to seeing both of these go into the live environment to see how they play out in a more natural environment. Because obviously on PTU, people are jumping on there to
future
try and
drugs,
test the features,
maybe.
what we need. It'd be interesting to see how they percolate to just general play over a period of time, because it's kind of like when we released Active Status T0, they take a long time to really get a sense of how the player base is going to play with them at scale. But I mean, overall, I think the feedback has been fairly positive across the two features, and we're not finished. We've still got a long way to go, but it's
oh really, Jade? Okay, so apparently Tarkov used to be like this, and eventually they moved to the system they have.
Thing. I don't get to play very much, but when I do get to play, and for other players that are like me, we spend a lot of time at Glacier. Right now in Glacier, a broken leg is pretty much a death sentence. What are we? What are we doing? I know prison healthcare isn't the best, but what are we doing about that?
Yes. I think for 315, there's not much we will be doing in terms of if you
Rip
do
pirates.
get an injury in prison, which is unfortunate. The one thing is that we will eventually add medical facilities to the prison. As we do, if you can see now, for example, where we've linked the space station to the landing zone, because not all landing zones have a hospital. We've had to basically create a few stopgap solutions for us to solve those problems. But the goal is to add medical facilities in all locations you would expect medical facilities to be added, and the prison should be one as well. So for now, it's an unfortunate, but it is something that we are discussing, and we do want to see if we can get something fixed.
Okay. Swoop into inventory here again. In 315, all armor, guns, etc. go into ship storage, but gun racks are handled separately, and armor cupboards aren't used at all. Why is that?
That's the next step of personal inventory. So if this is personal inventory T0, personal inventory T1 is the removal of local inventory so that it becomes physicalized inventory, and that's where lockers and gun racks and armor cupboards will be used properly. And then those armor cupboards will be used to save loadouts. So you'll be able to say, okay, this is my exploration suit. This is the ammo and armor, or ammo and
that's very good.
And guns and med pens that I want on this suit, and you'll be able to save that in a physical locker, and then you'll be able to interact with that locker and quickly put that on.
Oh,
so that's
dude,
the
I
next
like that.
Iteration of personal inventory.
Okay.
That's really awesome.
Currently, if you wish to loot armor or weapons, you essentially need to drop what you already have equipped, walk to your ship, strip, and walk back naked to loot more or get your old gear. Will there be tweaks made to fit armor or weaponry into backpacks?
So the goal of the inventory right now is to make sure that it's a believable system in terms of the actual volume and items that you can fit within that space. So for example, if you've got a 120 liter backpack, the description I always give is that and I think I've said this on one of our shows before, is like, I can't fit the snooker cue in there in terms of because it's so long, but if I put it through a wood chipper, I would be able to fit the volume in there. So we take into account the item dimensions and the volume. The intention right now is that you can either body drag those enemies back to your ship, or you can tractor beam. I'm not sure many people have been using the tractor beam, but you can actually tractor beam dead bodies. You can tractor beam a dead body back to your ship and then loot it that way. We do want to offer other abilities down the line, other features that are around that, whether that's hover trolley or whatever that you can take out and then load up and then take in. It's the old Ultima Online pack horse. But yeah, that's the
Ultima Online references. But the thing is I have a backpack as a hockey bag, which is full on armor, helmet, chest, arms and elbow, leg, pants, skates, gloves. It's all there, and it all fits in a backpack. It is a relatively big backpack, but it all fits just fine. So the idea of not being able to shove things into a backpack, at the very least, the believability thing is, I think, not as relevant. I mean, the believability that these things fold and bend is part of that. No, like, I'm confused.
A further iteration on to the iteration we have now.
Yeah, I think what a lot of folks are probably wondering about is that it's like that they get a set of armor legs. Sure, you're not going to be able to fit in whatever, but a pair of pants can be folded, conceivably.
Well, actually, that's actually a bug. Okay. So this is something that's happened. I spoke to the guys. We've actually done a full pass now, and it should be going in today. I saw an update on it. Essentially, anything that's like cloth or clothes, even though you see a large icon, it should have a very low micro SCU value. So an undersuit should easily fit in a backpack. I know it doesn't right now, but that was a bug. There's something going wrong with the sizing of this. So if you've got a backpack and you've got clothes or anything you think
like
should be
a
able
helmet
to fold,
or armor, like
that
those
fit
things
in,
should
and we will
fit
be making
too.
that fit in for 315. It's when you've got like, hey, I want to be able to put the Caldera suit in my backpack. It's like, well, you would never fit that. I mean, it's like a giant spacesuit.
That's understandable. But I'm talking about
I'm
like light
imagining a
armor,
folding
medium
laundry
armor.
game right now.
Maybe not heavy
Absolutely.
armor, you know? But maybe a part of heavy
And then
armor.
you've got the ironing T1.
Nubifier and everybody who's doing a recap thing, mention that without the context. Just like, yeah, there was some talk about a folding minigame, and just leave it at that to really just confuse the hell out of people who don't watch the full thing. Starting locations. In 315, we now have all these starting locations. A lot of folks have been requesting that Grimhex be added as a starting location. What are our thoughts on that?
So we talked about Grimhex, and it's still a topic of discussion. Unfortunately, Grimhex doesn't
Why?
have all of the facilities that all the other starting locations have. So we're, obviously, when we take into account new players and new players coming to the verse, we have to make sure that you can get your ground vehicle out, or you can get access to your ship, and so on and so forth. So it's not to say that we won't add Grimhex.
But neither does Area 18 or Crusader. So that's so confusing. I don't know.
It's a starting location in the future. For 315, it won't be a starting location.
It's also kind of
but
OP
it is
because you
something
can
that
just
we are
leave.
actively discussing. Todd, myself, Chris, Tony, about Grimhex. So all you criminals out there, we do want to do you a solid, but it's for now.
Yeah,
you'll have to be UEE until you go criminal.
Yeah, I think there also needs to be consideration for the beginning player experience. For the first time player of Star Citizen who doesn't know any better, is Grimhex the place we want them to start that journey if they've never experienced the PU before?
That's a good point, I guess.
That's definitely got to be factored into the conversation.
Discovering
Yeah,
that
there's always
is
more
actually kind of a
considerations
cool
than
thing.
people think
Maybe it should
about,
stay that way.
There's lots of different angles that you can take on it. But yeah, like I said, it's definitely on the table. We're discussing it, but I doubt we'll be adding it as a starting location for 315.
Nubifier, in addition to the ironing, closing, and folding minigame, iron on decals and stuff. Those little transfers, little paper transfers. We're thinking about that too. With the changes coming to 315 when you die and you lose items that you had, it's great for looting gameplay. But how do we prevent players from logging out and reconnecting to avoid losing items?
It's a really good question. So what we want to do is essentially what we did with the ships, where if somebody logs out, that if somebody's around you and still fighting you or whatever, that your character persists for a certain amount of time. A lot of MMOs do that. It's either your.
Well, this is the
Did
eternal
they do
MMO
that with the
question right
ships,
here.
actually?
Yeah, so that's what we want to do, that you persist for a certain amount of time, and then so you basically exploit
So Virgil
the system
can't avoid
get
going to
away.
jail anymore?
We're looking into that essentially to see what we can do in the meantime.
Gotcha. So even if you load out, so just like the ships, even if you ninja log Alt F4 or whatever, your player character is still there for a period of time.
Yeah, because right now, if you just ninja log, then you can escape, and that's not the intention, and that's people exploiting the system. So we are looking into a way of doing that. Whether it makes 315 or not will be dependent on bugs and other factors.
Does that work in ships, guys? I've never heard of that coming in.
Look at the chat here. Orison security is currently unarmed, which means that they can't deal with players who have a crime stat. Will Orison eventually get armed security?
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, you can put it on silent and that doesn't happen.
It is on silent, so I don't know why it's ringing. It's weird. I do that. But
Don't take it. We'll wait.
they will. Yeah, should. They can answer some questions. Yes. I think they're fixing it, so they're looking into it now in terms of adding the loadout of weapons onto onto the security guards.
That's good to know,
So
actually.
Origin not having weapons.
Tyler's calling me now.
Who is?
Tyler's calling me.
Oh. So Origin not having weapons wasn't. What is that? It wasn't intentional.
No.
His other phone is ringing. This is hilarious.
Yes, for the folks who just saw the pop up there, I'm going to Disney World for my holiday vacation, and I have to book my Cinderella's Royal Table dinner today. So, important leaked information there.
When? Because I'm going there as well. Next Saturday, I'm going to Disney World.
A little higher up. It's a little question good for you. Now that medical gameplay comes with 315 and the beginning of Death of a Spaceman, do you think it was a good time to release while the game has so many bugs in it and chances to die due to these bugs? And how do you think this will affect the player's interest in the game?
I think this. I mean, I touched on
Bro,
this
should
in one of the
hype up
previous
the
questions.
interest.
in
It
terms
does
of,
for me.
You know, these are large systems and complex systems, and we
Yeah,
want to
wood
get
sharp,
them
of
out
course.
in terms of the player experience. Obviously, we want to try and fix as many bugs as possible and make it as polished experience as we can. But obviously, when you're adding to a significant code base like Star Citizen, there's always going to be new bugs or old bugs that reappear. So we do have an initiative at CIG that's been in place for probably the last 2 years or so, since I can remember, where we've been essentially making more time every quarter to fix bugs or technical debt, so we can go in and basically fix as many bugs. So that previously teams were essentially, if you look at the graph, it was just accumulating bugs every quarter, and we were like, that's not acceptable. We need to start bringing them down. So now we're starting to see some teams come down, other teams are flatlining, so they're trying to add more time so they can fix more bugs. But fundamentally, it's always a balance. It's a balance of when do we release new features versus fixing bugs.
Man, it doesn't feel that way as the player,
fix all
though.
the bugs and then add new features. Like I touched on before, anytime that you add anything new, it generates new bugs. Even fixing bugs generates bugs.
Yeah.
So it's just, there will always be fixing bugs until we get to content complete, and then we can go into a more release cycle. But for now, like you said, we are Star Citizen Alpha, and then we're still getting in some of the fundamental systems like inventory, like healing, and there'll be other big systems coming like server meshing and hangar management app and how you manage your ship loadout. So there's lots still to come.
Yep. For those of you asking, no, Cinderella's a fancy table thing. It's dinner inside Cinderella's castle, and you have to book it like 2 months in advance, especially if you're trying to get it on New Year's Eve, which I'm trying to get. So that you can be
I won't be there.
atop inside Cinderella's castle having dinner with the fireworks out the window. I did it 2 years ago. It was beautiful. And
I'm jealous.
I am a pretty princess. Are there?
We're going to Epcot.
Are there any super duper rare items?
Did he answer the question?
loot boxes?
Yeah, he said they're spending more time on the technical debt every quarter, and they're trying to make, instead of the bugs go up, the bugs go down as far as the number of bugs in each team or whatever. So I said as a player, it does feel like the opposite, but that could just be the way the game feels, and that could not be the actual reality of things. But like you said, every time you put new features in, there's going to be new bugs and so on and so forth. So for me, sometimes I can't accept their excuse or their response or their answer to certain questions, but I have no issue with that.
I know there are things in loot boxes that you can't find in stores.
There are things in loot boxes that shouldn't be in loot boxes, as well as things in loot boxes that you can't find in stores.
Fair enough.
Loot boxes, right now, I don't think there is anything super duper rare, but this is just the T0 of loot boxes. The loot boxes generally, I think people are having, I think when we did it at EVO, the people were getting squadron items and flares, and, the intention is that you should be able to find rarer things in the future. But in 3.15, this is about 3.15, I don't believe there's anything super duper rare, but you never know.
So I want to reiterate the answer there. Some things that you're currently finding in loot boxes are not supposed to be there. And some things, but at the same time, there are supposed to be things that you can only find through exploration out in the verse, and that can be either different color variations of existing items that only exist in loot boxes, like different skins or whatever, or it can be full-on variants of stuff, or we reserve the right to put whole things in there that you just get that from the loot box, and not from a store.
We reserve the right to make a video game. Holy crap! Thanks, Jared.
And explore the universe and stuff like that. And part of how we do that is by putting things that can only be discovered out there. Right now, I can't tell you which is which. When you look at one of those super weird things that you're finding, I can't tell you whether that's an intentional thing or whether that's a bug.
Essentially, they're going through the list now and making sure that before we go to live 315, that it's all what should be in there. We've got a lot of items, so they're
probably
just going through making sure what ones should be in there are in there, and then.
Apparently, people were finding ammo for a mythical alien rocket launcher, and we thought it was like this ultra rare thing.
I think the two-handed tractor beam
sounds like a squadron thing.
The two-handed tractor beam is not supposed to be live, so I don't even think it even works.
No, it doesn't exist. It was just I got that. So it's a blank icon, and you try to put it in your hands, and nothing happened. So it doesn't exist.
Back to inventory. We're almost done here. Will we be able to create any sort of shareable cargo containers beyond backpacks? Can we make ammo crates or medical supplies or boxes with food and drinks? Can we make our own loot crates and set it down, kind of stuff?
In the next patch, right?
Not for 315. You can't make crates, but the intention is that you will eventually be able to buy boxes that you can then put stuff in and other people can share, and that will come with the first time we would be able to do that would be the cargo refactor, that you'll be able to buy an empty box and use that in your cargo to store things, and then other people will be able to come and interact with that box. But for 315, no.
I can absolutely see some players purposely loading their ships up with specific boxes of rare items and everything, and flying through and whoever's going to kill me, it's like every
so you're going to get a prize. I've always planned on doing that.
It's the kind of it's the next thing for Daymar Rally or the various.
Well, I still want drunk Daymar Rally.
We'll get there. Yeah. Are there any short-term plans to add an option to send or transfer ownership of items via the Knickknacks app? I would say in general. I don't know if specifically the Knickknacks app, but any plans to?
So there's no. Basically, the way that they want to have trading between players is obviously going to be a different app. So there is plans to allow you to be in Knickknacks and be like, I want to transfer this to someone else, and then it will take them to the player trading app. But I don't think there's anything short term to do that. And when I say short term in terms of 315. There's no plans in 315 to allow that, but it is
in the plans.
A plan that will be done eventually.
Okay. Can you be very specific on how the future of storage interactions will take place, i.e., overhead compartments, cases, gun racks? We touched on
all
this
about 315, by the way.
Many citizens seem to think that the current Magic Toy Box ship is an endgame vision.
Magic Toy Box ship is placeholder. That's it.
How many times does he have to say it?
Local inventory, the version that you just magically open and see items in an ethereal box or an ethereal space, is placeholder. So I'm just going to say that again. Magic Toy Box ship is placeholder. That will go. It will always be physicalized inventory. You will have your inner thought that manages your own items.
Looking at Lola, she's still sleeping.
And then you will deal with external inventory, interacting with a physical cupboard in the world. And you'll have physical inventory, which is interacting with things that you actually see. I can see that armor. It's in that armor cupboard. I open the door. I can pick up that armor and put it on myself. Any time where that is not the case is placeholder. And I think I've said that like 100 times.
I know we said it in the whole
Thank you, Daz.
Segment dedicated to it, but
Thank you for your
not
prime,
everybody
man.
watches everything. Not everybody takes in everything that they watch, and it's one of those messages that's worth repeating over and over
But
again.
yes, physical inventory is the goal.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm just
Speaking
gonna
of
go solo, BB, because it's too hard to play with
things
other
we're working
people.
towards, is this the final UI
just want a
for
mine.
inventory and looting system?
Ooh, final. That's a harsh word. But no, this is the T0 for inventory and looting system. We will keep iterating and continuing on it. Obviously, if you've played Evercarty through to now, you've already seen a huge amount of change around that UI. So we're always going to be iterating and working on it. But it's the one that is, going live for 3.15, and hopefully lots of people enjoy it, and then we'll take further feedback and then continue to iterate it when we do T1 and T2 and so on and so forth.
And for folks in the chat that are like, I thought we weren't doing T0 anymore, that's a new initiative that's just starting this year, and you'll see the results of that later down the line.
Well,
that's not a thing.
That's specifically to my pillar that's not doing
Yes.
so. This is when we did.
It should be for every pillar, dude. It should literally be for every pillar. Why is it only his? It makes no
change
sense.
for me going to Squadron to do polished features. This is.
I don't know,
we're
Kai
like
Marty. We're gonna
shit
try
tanker.
today.
That discussion was me at the front shouting to the person at the back to change heading. So we've only. This is the last patch where we have the T0s. And then from now on, we should be moving to more polished features.
Yep. And again, that only applies to the actor feature team stuff. You'll still see
core
T0s
gameplay pillar.
Or the core gameplay pillar. You'll still see T0 stuff from the other teams and stuff like that. It's just
why
it's just a change in direction for one pillar at the moment. And
Jared's implying it
doesn't
might be
change
for
on a
others
dime.
though. So
Like
it's
you
what
just
I
use
want.
The big cargo ship. That's a good example.
I'd rather get things
slowly
later, but more
change,
polished.
Direction over time.
That's
so,
my personal preference.
you may still see some T0 stuff before that's fully done. All right, how much time do we got? Okay. We got time for one more. I'm gonna ask you the big one before we let you go here. How far down the hardcore survival rabbit hole are you planning to go?
Oh wow, good question.
You want us to play with others, yet you are continually adding systems that make me even more fearful to trust other players. How do you? Where are we going with
Space
this?
is a Wild West.
Well, I
It
think
always has been in Privateer, at least.
it's a
Freelancer.
it's a rock and a hard place in some respects. I think obviously strength in numbers, but then obviously that's the premise, is that you should play together with other people, and then helps you out. But I mean, to answer the question specifically, we've got actor status in terms of eating and drinking. We want the game to be around resources that players can collect. Obviously, homesteads eventually, and those homesteads will be areas that you can store your own things, and obviously we'll have raiding and pirates and all of that kind of thing. So I suppose Chris has a vision in his mind from what he wants Star Citizen to be. Obviously there are elements of games like Valheim and Tarkov and Rust that tie into that, but Star Citizen is its own game, and it will set its own boundaries with how it executes those mechanics. So a good example is eating and drinking. Really, in terms of comparisons to other survival games, we're very, very light on eating and drinking. I think it's like 10, 12 hours if you just stood still in the PU before you have to eat anything.
Right.
So, if you play Ark, you have to eat every 5 minutes, whereas, it's dependent. So I think we want to have those mechanics that we're moving towards, which has always been the intention since way before I even joined Cloud Imperium. I know only now that we're delivering on them. So I think it's a hard answer to talk about, because fundamentally we're still getting everything in there, and the balance will dictate that answer. Because how hardcore do we want to be? Like, it could take me 5 minutes to just change all the data to say you have to drink every half an hour. But that's not the game that we want. We want a game that is more realistic's probably the wrong word, but a game that's more that is more cohesive to the Star Citizen experience, that you're this space explorer out in the verse, and you've got ships that have all these different functions, and you have
They just
beds
don't
in
want
there.
you
So
to ignore
eventually
food and
we
drink,
will
but they
want
don't want it
players
to be
have
the
tidiness,
thing.
or we have showers. So do we want hygiene? Well, yeah, that's part of active status. I think it's on the roadmap.
There's a
So things that we will add, and we'll go from there.
there's a couple of things to dissect there. Chris has always said you take it to the point of realism, and then you bring it back to the point of fun. So it's one of those, there will be people that chastise as a that's not real. It's like what only eating every 10 hours or 12 hours or whatever. It is always about that balance. It is always take it to the point of realism, then bring it back to the point of fun. And that is a thing.
So go on.
And that's a thing that we discover together. That is
I
why
feel like you
we
should have to
a live
eat and drink
environment
like
in our alpha.
once every 4 hours, maybe. But
we don't just set out with a number of anything. Like, oh, this is the picture we want to build. We are truly developing this together. And I know sometimes that sounds like buzzword or whatever, but I would hope that anybody who's been watching me for the last 6-7 years I've been here,
Zezorus maybe. Who
knows I'm going to be frank and honest with people to the point of that it sometimes makes my bosses upset. That we are making this together, and your feedback gets incorporated into this stuff, and our ideas for the game evolve along with the experience and the feedback that you give us and stuff like this. So it can be a very difficult question to answer today, because the answer will be discovered together through our continual development and our continual testing. This is what I was getting at.
And there's also, when you take into account, are we just a pure simulation? We're not.
No.
We're simulating
I thought we were legally
a
a sim.
universe and all of those things inside of that universe, but there are things in there that are, what most people would expect to happen. So a good example is, what would you expect to happen if you walk up a mountain? You expect it to get colder. So and the closer you get to outer space, people think, well, it should get colder. But if you actually look at the real science behind what happens to the temperature between leaving the ground and entering space, it basically goes, it gets colder, then it gets hotter, because like the atmosphere thins and it starts to get more, and then it gets colder again, and then it gets hotter again. And it's like this crazy graph that's like hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold. And if we had implemented that as a absolute mirror, a pure simulation of temperature, which, to be fair, would have been incredibly complex.
Oh, I just lost Rich. Oh, you're back.
Oh, my back. So
Yep.
most people would have come back and said it was a bug, that was happening, and we would have had to explain, like, no, that's real life. So we have to take into those accounts that we want to simulate real life.
The perfect pauses.
But, how it's what people expect. It's people's expectations of what real life is, and I think that's a balance that we want to have, and we want to go for push for as much realism as we can, where it makes sense. And by the way, 10 to 12 hours was 10 to 12 hours of our world time. That's not 10 to 12 hours of in-game time, which is much longer in-game time.
All right, well, that about does it. Thank you so much, Rich. For those watching, that amazing face he was making when he froze, you have permission to cut that out and use that as a Twitch emote. This is the formal permission for that. I asked Rich, he's cool with it. Additionally, for folks asking, always lots of when questions. When is PTU going to Wave 2? When is PTU going to all players?
When is PTU going to Wave 2 is a legitimate question.
The only answer I ever have for when questions, folks, is when we think it's ready. That's part of our process. That's part of why we went crowdfunded and stuff like that. So we wouldn't be beholden to these arbitrary dates and be forced to push something out before.
The thing about this is Wave 1 has been Wave 1 for much longer than it normally is, and people are like, yo, I want to enjoy the things that other people are enjoying without having to pay for it. The problem here, and the reason that people are asking that question, is because it is literally pay to get into Wave 1, which is, like, I think inappropriate, and I don't think is a good look or cool, and I think it's weird. I understand Wave 2 and that they're jamming a lot of features into Wave 1 right now, and there's a lot of bugs and blah, 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 blah. But just explaining it to people is enough. And this explanation already, I can't accept.
I think it's ready. So
When we think it's ready is
continue
not
to
acceptable
monitor
in this
the
specific
Roberts Space
situation.
Industries.com website for information on when those changes happen.
Like when Wave
and
2,
as far
because
as
it's pay to get
anything
into
else,
Wave
like,
1.
Other questions. When is Linux coming? When is Polaris coming and stuff? That's why we have the
Everything
public
else is
roadmap.
acceptable to say
So,
when it's ready.
All
This
one
situation,
questions
I don't
go
agree with.
to the website in one way, shape, or form. Rich, thank you for being here. I don't know when the next time we're going to have you on, because this
really
completes
disappointing.
You're now subsuming yourself into Squadron 42, but I'll miss you.
No doubt there'll be some way of getting me back on.
I'll figure it out. I'll contrive some reason to bring you back on. Thanks for watching, folks. ISC returns on November 4th. Let me check my calendar. Yeah, November 4th. So keep an eye on that. We'll be back with another Star Citizen Live next Friday. Until then, that was Rich. I'm Jared.
So not next week, the week after.
Have fun. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for watching.